There are 4 types of business expenses that you'll have in running your operation. So let's break them down. First one is materials. Now, if you're running a service business, it's unlikely you're going to have many materials. So for example, us as accountants, we don't have materials, we have computers and software, we don't have any sort of tangible materials. But if I'm in construction, if I'm in manufacturing, there's going to be materials that go into making my product, building my house. If I'm in wholesale, then yes, I'm also going to have materials that go, I buy this for $1 and I sell it for $2. So materials in businesses that aren't service-based need to be your biggest focus because they drive the majority of what you do as an operating entity. Your goal with your material cost is to obsess about it. You need to think about it every single day. As we say with all our videos, what are the keys to business success? Sales and marketing, gross profit, and working capital management. Your materials impact each of those. They impact your sales, they impact your gross profit, how much money you make from a sale, and then your working capital, which impacts your debtors, your creditors, and also your stock. So you need to obsess about that number and always look for the best possible deal you can get from a supplier in terms of the price you pay and the terms that you get for payment. So for example, if I've got 2 suppliers and one says we'll give it to you for $1 and another one says we'll give it to you for $1.05, but you can pay us in 90 days, and the one for $1 says you got to pay us right now, there might be scenarios where you choose one over the other, where you're willing to pay a bit more to wait longer for payment, or conversely, if you're cashed up, you might be better off paying the $1 today because you're going to make more money at the end of the process as a result. So materials needs to be your constant focus for your purchasing, your sales, and your operations team. The next biggest expense, if you're running a construction, wholesale, or manufacturing business, and your biggest expense if you're running a service business is, you guessed it, your people. So making sure you're maximizing your return on investment on your people. And there's different types of benchmarks and KPIs around people who are working on the job and also people who are working in the office and administrative area of your business. We've done a course on optimizing the performance of your team from a financial perspective. And we go into great detail around how to do that and the strategies regarding that. But for today's analysis with looking at your expenses, it's looking at your people as your next biggest. And there's a lot of time and a lot of focus that needs to go into each of those areas, because you're going to have people who work in operations, what we call the doers, people working in sales and marketing, people working in admin, or what we call lightening the load. And then we have people working in strategic direction, which will be your management. So it's understanding your return on investment in each of those areas. The next 2 elements are compliance and investment. Let's look at compliance first. Compliance, you might think, oh, is this to do with my tax accountant? Is this to do with, paying my GST or my VAT or those sorts of elements? No. These are the expenses that you have to incur in running a business, and there's really no way around them. So for example, insurance, rent, telephone, the internet, computer expenses, all those sorts of expenses that you see running through your business, that it doesn't matter how much or how little you do as a business, you have to incur those costs on an ongoing basis. So what's your degree of focus on those compliance costs? I believe you should look at them maybe half yearly to yearly and then completely forget about them. So for example, when you're looking at your insurance policy and it's due for a renewal, and that's most likely going to be every 12 months, you go to your broker, tell them, I want the best deal I can possibly get out there. You sign the contract and you don't worry about it for another 12 months. Same thing with other expenses like electricity, telephone bills. Are there telephones you're paying for that aren't even being used anymore? Down to your computer expenses. These are all things that you go, I want to make sure that I'm not getting ripped off. I want to make sure I'm not wasting any money, but at the same time, I don't want to be burning too much time looking into this area. Let me give you an example. The reason why I say you don't want to burn too much time there is because it's a finite amount you can make up. So let's say, for example, you pay $10,000 a year in telecommunications and internet, and you found a way to remove all those expenses within your business and you save $10,000. Well, most businesses, if you're spending around $10,000 in telecommunications, you're probably doing $5, $6, $7 million a year. Saving $10,000 by completely eliminating something, even though it's not practical, isn't really moving the needle. You're better off focusing on sales and marketing, gross profit, and those elements we spoke about earlier. So we have to make sure that we're getting the maximum return on investment for our time, not just trying to cut costs. So they're compliance costs. And as I mentioned before, the last one is investments. Now, investments aren't looking at property, they're not looking at cars, they're not looking at new equipment that you might have purchased. It's actually looking at investments on your profit and loss. And these are expenses where if you were to not do them ever again, you wouldn't take away from your ability to sell your product or deliver your product. Let me give you an example. So advertising and marketing, staff training, are two perfect examples. Consultants is another one, where you bring people in, you bring expertise into your business, or in marketing's case, you're making an investment hoping to grow your business. With those expenses, there's an expectation that you're going to get a greater return than the price you pay for them. So for example, if you invest $10,000 in marketing, you're hoping to get more than $10,000 in not just revenue, but in gross profit as a result of that. So you want to make sure that you're holding those investments accountable. Same thing with consultants. If you bring a so-called expert within your business, you want to get a return on the money you're investing with them. Same thing with staff training. You're not just sending people away to do things for the fun of it. It's so that they can add more value within your business. So what's the benchmark you use for those investments? Is really holding them accountable for the dollars you're spending and the outcomes you're getting. So again, holding that benchmark of if I'm spending $10,000, what is my return? Either in terms of more revenue, more business, or more expertise that's helping me improve my cash, improving my profitability as a business. So as a quick recap, 4 types of expenses. Materials, obsess about them. If you're in a business other than service, you need to obsess about them. You need to think about them breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Your people, same thing, making sure you're getting the maximum return on every single person within your business to help you grow and where you want to get to. Thirdly, your compliance costs. Reduce the cost as much as you possibly can and don't think about them too much. Think about them once or twice a year. And then lastly, your investments. Hold them accountable to make sure that you're getting the maximum return on investment for them. And if they're not, turn them off and stop doing them.